The night is the doorway between two worlds. And in the very moment you lay yourself down on the bed, your soul steps into a silent journey where imagination becomes the language of dialogue with the Creator. I have seen in many readings that there is no moment more powerful than the one just before sleep. For when the waking mind quiets down, the subconscious opens like a vast field, waiting to be sown. You may think that the thoughts drifting through your mind at that time are nothing but idle dreams. Yet, in a deeper reality, they are directives sent into the stream of creation, invisible commands shaping your tomorrow. When you lie in silence, remember that imagination is not a child's game, but the instrument of the soul, and any melody you lift up will echo into the energetic field of the universe. That is why many pray their whole lives and never see an answer, because they pray as beggars. They speak in fear and doubt, while the immutable law reflects only belief and never listens to cries. I once read deep within the subconscious of man a truth that every thought is like a seed, and the fertile soil is the transition between waking and dreaming. In readings about healing, I saw that patients recovered not only through medicine, but because they surrendered their minds into sleep with the faith that they were already healed. The body hears the command of imagination and reshapes itself according to the image that the mind has given. Therefore, do not underestimate the brief moments when your eyes just close, for in that very time, your soul is writing a covenant with the universe. I have been asked whether long prayers or complex rituals are required to touch the power of the unseen. And the answer is always no, for within you already lies a temple, an altar, a sacred flame that needs no external building. Your imagination is that flame. When you allow the image of what you desire to live vividly in your mind, and you feel it is already real, then in that very instant you have knocked on the door of the Creator. Let me be clear. It is not the words you speak that matter, but the feeling that accompanies them. A person may say 1,000 times, I am healthy, but still tremble inside with fear. And the subconscious hears only that trembling. In contrast, another may simply exhale in silence, yet feel peace and fullness of life, and the subconscious takes that as a command. This is why when you lie down tonight, see the pillow as an altar, see the breath as a prayer, and allow your mind to enter into the scene of completion. Do not ask when or how. Simply feel that it is already done. And in that feeling, you have sown an indestructible seed. In some readings, I saw the image of souls wandering in their own dreams, repeating again and again the scenes of worry and disappointment. And in the morning they woke with the same burdens, but they were also souls who, once they learned how to pause and change the final scene of the day, witnessed their lives transform. They no longer carried the old dream, but planted the seed of a new reality. You too, if tonight you enter sleep with gratitude and the feeling of sufficiency, will call forth a tomorrow that reflects those very things. Do not forget that the universe is not silent because it has abandoned you, but because it is waiting for you to send a clear signal, and that signal is never words, but the state of being you carry as you fall asleep. If you want love, see yourself lying in the arms of affection. If you want prosperity, feel the joy of one who already has enough. If you want healing, hear the breath flowing like a pure river. In readings, I often saw one common point, that every soul has the ability to shape its own future, and the key lies in the final minutes of the day. Remember that when you close your eyes, you are not just entering a dream. You are writing a prophecy, and that prophecy will be fulfilled because the eternal law does not distinguish between great or small, easy or hard, but only reflects what you accept as true. Therefore, the invitation in the night given to you is to live as one who already has to surrender and to sleep with a heart of fullness, and tomorrow you will step out into a world bending itself to the faith you have sown. This is the beginning of every transformation, and it is always within your reach, hidden in the most ordinary moments, unnoticed by the outer world. But heaven and earth always listen, and the subconscious always remembers, and you are the one writing your destiny each night. Have you ever wondered why, in moments of daydreaming, the images appearing in your mind can move your heart more deeply than events happening in real life? And why there are dreams that make you wake up still carrying the exact feeling as if they had truly happened? That is not an illusion, but evidence that imagination is the true language of the universe. In the readings I have witnessed many times, those who came seeking healing or guidance often carried the question of why their prayers were not answered. And what I saw clearly was that they prayed in the language of lack, while the universe listens to only one signal. The images and emotions you impress upon imagination. Imagination is not a child's game. It is the instrument the soul uses to converse with the creative source. It is the way the invisible part of you paints an image that the visible part must follow. Every ancient civilization understood this. Prophets and sages did not pass on wisdom with dry reasoning. They told stories. They painted images. They used symbols because they knew that imagination is the fastest doorway to reach the subconscious of man, and from there open the connection with the divine. When you imagine, you are not merely thinking. You are sending out a vibration, and that vibration does not fade, but moves into the energy field surrounding your life. It will seek to combine with events, people, and opportunities that share the same frequency. Some will say it is only fantasy, but look again. Everything you have today, from your house, your work, your relationships, was once an image in someone's imagination. No invention, no structure, no work of art ever appeared without first being born in imagination. Therefore, imagination is not only a dream, it is a blueprint. It is the language the universe translates into reality. In readings, I clearly saw that souls who know how to use imagination with faith and consistency often create great transformations in life, while those who use imagination to repeat fears attract exactly the things they worry about. This is not abstract philosophy. It is a law of living. You can try it tonight. Take a few minutes before sleep to picture something you truly desire, and allow your body to feel it as already done. You will notice that your entire energy shifts. Your breathing slows down. Your heart beats with a steady rhythm, and a new current of feeling arrives. That is the sign you have sent a clear message. This language does not use words. It does not require pleading. It only requires that you touch a real emotion. Imagination is the channel connecting your finite part with the infinite soul. It is the bridge between the flesh and the divine essence that already holds everything. I'm often asked how to know if imagination is strong enough to reach the universe. And I answer, if you can feel it in your body, if you find yourself smiling, shedding tears, or feeling relief, as if released, then you have spoken in a language the universe cannot deny. Imagination does not stop at creating images. It creates the energy field around you. This field acts like a magnet. It does not ask what you want. It only reflects the state you carry. Therefore, if you often imagine negative situations, failures, losses, then you are the one who has unintentionally ordered the universe to bring them. On the other hand, if you dare to use imagination to live in abundance, then you have sent a code that compels life to rearrange itself to match that code. I once sensed something important, that imagination is a sacred gift. Each soul is given at birth, and when we know how to use it rightly, we no longer ask if the universe hears us, for we understand that imagination itself is the ear and the eye of the universe. Ask yourself right now, What have you used imagination to repeat most often? Are you imagining beautiful outcomes or allowing your mind to construct fearful scenarios? And you will know at once why your life looks as it does. Imagination does not distinguish real from false. It only records and plants. Therefore, be cautious with the scenes you allow to appear in your mind, for they will soon become scenes in your life. This is a truth many souls do not dare to face. But once you accept it, you will understand that you have never been powerless. You have always held in your hand the language of communication with the entire universe. And that language is none other than your own imagination. The state before sleep is the rare moment when consciousness loosens its control and the door of the subconscious opens widest. It is the bridge between the visible and the invisible, where the final thoughts of the day enter like seeds and begin to take root. In the readings I have often observed this repetition, that what you hold in your mind as you drift into sleep will appear in the experience of the next day, sometimes as an event, sometimes only as an underlying feeling that guides every choice. This is precisely why many people remain trapped in the same cycle, because they do not realize that each night they are rewriting the map of their lives. The state before sleep is not only the rest of the body, it is the sacred space to restore the relationship between consciousness and the subconscious. When the body grows weary and the mind fades, the walls of reason, doubt, and fear dissolve as well, leaving a pure emptiness where any image you place will be received without resistance. At this very moment, if you know how to choose for yourself the image of abundance, of what is already complete, you will plant into the fertile soil a definite command, and the subconscious, which never distinguishes between real and unreal, will begin to work to draw you nearer to that state. I have observed many cases where a person did not change their circumstances, did not take any new action, but simply by changing the final scene before sleep, they saw their entire life shift, as if a river had changed its course. That is because the subconscious always submits to the last script it receives. And when you repeat that script, it becomes the new pathway. The state before sleep is like a land where the body temporarily rests, but the soul works most powerfully. There, you do not need to force detailed imagination. You only need to merge yourself into the feeling of completion. That feeling is the key. If you want to be loved, let your body feel as if warm arms already embrace you. If you desire prosperity, breathe in relief and joy as one already fulfilled. If you seek healing, feel the vitality circulating throughout your body, flowing through every vein. The skill does not lie in how much you think, but in how naturally you allow the mind to sink into that feeling as if it were an existing reality. In readings about sleep, I have seen that when the soul passes through this threshold, it is like a sower. It may plant faith or it may plant doubt, and both seeds will sprout equally without exception. This shows that you do not need to worry about method or timing. You only need to know that the state before sleep is the most powerful ritual you can perform each day. It requires no effort, no words, no witness, yet it engraves itself into the energy stream surrounding your life. At this point, you can understand that truth is not found outside, but within your inner being. And the state before sleep is the moment that grants supreme authority to the inner self. If you surrender in fear, you will awaken in fear. But if you surrender in peace and certainty, then the new day will unfold with the same energy. The power of this state lies in its simplicity and certainty. It does not rely on chance, but on a subtle law that always works in silence. Therefore, tonight, as you step into this state, you are no longer only a person going to bed. You are a soul rewriting the script of your own life, and every dream you nurture at this threshold will become the foundation of tomorrow. Assuming the result rather than the process is one of the most important secrets that few are willing to understand. because the human mind is always pulled into asking how and when. It becomes entangled in details, in intermediate steps, in possibilities and obstacles, and this very act drains away the creative energy needed to form the outcome. In the readings I have witnessed, nothing is more powerful than the state of a soul who dares to live in the final scene as if it has already happened, without needing to know how, without caring about the process, only knowing that it is done. The universe does not hear worries about details, it hears only one frequency, the complete acceptance that the result has already taken shape. When you imagine yourself healthy, the subconscious does not ask which doctor healed you, which medicine you took, or which biological mechanism changed. It only receives the command that this body is healed and begins to regenerate itself. When you envision yourself in complete love, the subconscious does not require a list of actions. It only knows that you are living in that feeling and immediately adjusts vibrations to attract a corresponding reality. The greatest mistake of many people is that they keep imagining the road but never reach the destination. They stay busy drawing up plans but never once live in the joy of what is finished. They ask how many months, how many years, whether it will be the right person at the right time. And those very questions create the energy of doubt and waiting, causing the result to be endlessly delayed. To assume the result means you set aside all mechanisms, all calculations, all doubts, and step directly into the state of fulfillment. You may think this is deceiving yourself, but the truth is that the subconscious does not distinguish. It does not know what is happening out there. It only knows what you allow to happen inside. That is why, when you assume the result, your entire life rearranges itself to match, sometimes through unexpected paths you could never predict. In the readings, I have seen those who sought wealth, instead of worrying about investments or numbers, lived as if they already had it. They carried the mindset of one who is abundant, and from there opportunities, relationships, and ideas came to them naturally. This proves that results are not created by struggling with the process, but by the inner acceptance that they already exist. The universe always reflects your deepest belief. It does not reflect what you hope. It only reflects what you have affirmed as true. Therefore, when you stand in the state of assuming the result, you no longer ask when, you only know now. You no longer pray in lack. You affirm in fullness. You no longer wait for a sign. You are the sign, and from that moment on, the world cannot help but arrange circumstances to match the final scene you carry within. The subtlety here is that you must have the courage to bypass reason, for reason always demands proof. But assuming the result surpasses proof, you do not wait to see before you believe. You believe first, and then you see. This reversal changes the entire game. It turns you from a beggar into a co-creator. In the readings, I once described that any soul who holds the final scene as an already finished reality will see their life unfold like a film. It is only a matter of time before the scenes written in the inner script play out on the screen of the outer world. If you want to see change, stop asking how and begin asking what feeling, because the process always finds its own way. Only the feeling of the result is what you must deliver. And when you do this, you discover a profound relief. You are no longer tense, no longer striving, for you have stepped into the result, and the process is no longer your burden. It becomes the work of the universe. At this point, you begin to live in freedom, because you know that whatever you have assumed is complete will compel the world to yield and become reality. Emotion is the key, because the universe does not respond to words, but to the living frequency emitted from your heart and body. In every reading, I see that whatever you feel is real, the subconscious takes as a command, and life will arrange itself to obey. When the mouth says you are healthy, but the chest still carries the heartbeat of anxiety, the body hears the anxiety rather than the affirmation. Yet when you are silent and feel peace spreading, the subconscious accepts that peace as an accomplished fact and mobilizes habits and circumstances to reinforce it. Therefore, in the journey of assumption, do not put weight on words, put weight on feeling, because feeling is where the language of the soul turns into clear instruction for the universe. The right emotion is not a violent outburst. It is a steady current, like deep water. When you fall into that current, you no longer crave, because you have touched the sense of having, if what you seek is love, abundance, or healing, do not attempt to weave too many details. Let the body bear witness. Release the shoulders and neck, soften the breath. Place attention on the area, calling for it. Allow warmth and gratitude to spread. When the body rests, the signal sent out is safety, fullness, and being heard, and that frequency will attract corresponding possibilities. Many people construct scenes with imagination, but forget to attach them to feeling. A scene without feeling is like a picture hanging on a wall, while feeling is the fragrance and warmth that makes the room come alive. Only when feeling is present does the picture become a doorway. You do not need explosive emotion. You need emotion steady, consistent, and repeating like the background drum of a song. Every other melody will find its tone. Those who change quickly are those who understand the subtlety. They choose a state simple yet clear, then bathe in it each night, each breath, until it becomes the natural climate of life. Gratitude is the nearest bridge, because gratitude is the feeling of one who has already received. When the heart utters a wordless thank you, the whole body signals that the gift has arrived, and the law of reflection will bring matching evidence. You must distinguish true gratitude from pretending gratitude. If deep inside there is still resentment and fear, the signal sent is mixed, and the result will also be mixed. In that case, do not blame the law. Adjust the signal to refine emotion. Use the breath as a lever. Inhale deeply but gently. Exhale slowly and long to quiet the nervous system. Then place attention on the scene already completed. The essence is not to see many details, but to touch the quality of the result. It may be calm, relief, radiance, rest. As long as that quality covers the body and adheres to the breath, the emotional map will change color. When the right emotion has been shaped, guard it like a keeper of fire. Each time you see yourself slipping into old habits, simply return to the breath and reignite the quality of the result. No struggle, not self-blame, just return. Habits are deep grooves in the brain and spirit. They do not vanish overnight, but the right emotion repeated will fill new grooves. And one morning you will find yourself choosing rightly, without effort. That is a sign you have changed the inner climate. The body is the widest doorway into the subconscious. Let the body cooperate with clear signals. Relax the shoulders, loosen the jaw and eyes. Feel the feet grounding. When the body rests, then the emotion rests. And when the emotion rests, imagination is no longer shaky. It becomes a stable current. Do not fear the days when the heart feels heavy as lead. Those days only mean that the old layers of emotion are surfacing to be integrated. Welcome them as a mother welcomes her crying child. Then gently lead them both into the scene already completed. You do not deny the sorrow. You place it in the lap of a greater result, and that larger frame will transform it in the overlap before sleep. A little care is enough to change the entire music. Let the right feeling be the final note whispered through your body, so that in the morning you still carry its echo. If during the day contrary evidence appears, see it as the late wave of the old climate. Do not react quickly. Do not change the signal. Hold the rhythm. The new climate will soon shape the surface of the sea. You may choose a short phrase like a step to enter, feeling we are enough, we are loved, we are safe. But let that phrase live in the body instead of only echoing in the head. Each syllable with the breath, each word touching the chest, until the words are no longer needed because the feeling stands on its own. When the right emotion becomes the background habit, decisions will align naturally. You will speak differently, step differently, look differently, and life will respond like an echo in the mountains. The sound you send returns amplified and clear. That is why I say emotion is the key, because it opens the subconscious, it opens imagination, and it opens the outer gates, all to bring you back to where you already stood long ago, where the result is regarded as truth, and then the process is no longer a maze. It is only the path appearing under the feet of one who carries the right frequency of what they have chosen. Each time you feel the emotion slip away, pause for 10 breaths. Place your hand on your chest and listen to the heartbeat. Only 50 seconds is enough to let the quality of the result return. Then continue your day in peace. I affirm from my own experience that inner truth is greater than any outer evidence, because what you accept within is the cause, while what you see with your eyes is only the delayed result, the shadow of a belief already sent forth. In the readings, I have observed that outer life always runs one step behind the inner state, like thunder sounding after lightning has already split the sky. Therefore, if you judge reality only by what is displayed before you, you are using the effect of yesterday to deny the cause of today. You are giving power to the shadow and forgetting the source of light. I call this the fundamental mistake that keeps many souls wandering in cycles of lack and fear. When a person receives bad news about health, the evidence out there may be very clear, the numbers, the diagnoses, the limitations. But if in that moment they pour all their attention into the feeling of being healed, into steady breath, into the image of the body, functioning smoothly, then they have sent a new command, and I have seen the body obey that command as seeds respond to the call of the rainy season. Cells begin to reorganize habits of eating, and choices naturally shift. Opportunities for treatment, people, and suitable means appear not by force, but by resonance. You may call it coincidence, but I see it as the law of reflection, because the subconscious does not argue with evidence. It only carries out the state you hold when a person faces bills, debts, or closed doors. If they immediately assign themselves the identity of one lacking, then the world will quickly provide more data to confirm that role. But if they pause for a minute, lower their shoulders, soften the breath, and return to the feeling of sufficiency even when no outer sign is present, they have raised their frequency to a new standard. And that new standard cannot help but pull circumstances into alignment, because the world is a mirror. The mirror cannot smile when you are frowning. If you want the reflection to change, the face must change first. This is the order of creation. Many people think denying evidence is blindness. I say otherwise. We do not deny, we rank. Evidence is only the record of an old signal. We acknowledge it as we hear the lingering echo of a song. Then we choose to play a new song in the inner world. I have guided many through a simple ritual. Whenever facing unwelcome news, place a hand on the chest for 10 breaths. Call forth the feeling of the desired result. No argument, no justification, no promises. Just return. Repeat enough times, and you will see the neural map change. And when the map changes, the path changes, Inner truth has power because it operates at the level of cause. This level is not noisy, not hurried. It works in silence like roots clearing a path beneath the ground. You cannot see it, but you will feel it. When tension eases in the body, when aligned thoughts appear, when small daily choices fit together like puzzle pieces, these are signs you have given power back to the source of light instead of the shadow. And the shadow is forced to change form. Some ask why they still practice, but the outer world has not shifted. That very question reveals a misconception. They are using old results as conditions to believe in the new. They say they will believe when they see, while the right order is, they will see when they believe. I often explain that time is not your enemy. Time is your collaborator. It allows the seed to ripen. If you keep pulling unripe fruit in impatience, you will convince yourself the tree bears nothing. Let the feeling of the result rest within you like a warm coal. Feed it with steady breath and gratitude. Everything else belongs to the earth and the rain. Inner truth is greater than outer evidence also, because evidence always carries the bias of the past. News, opinion, collective fear, all of it is noise. Noise can make you lose your axis, but inner truth is quiet and firm. When you touch it, you need not convince anyone. A natural calm covers your words, your gaze, your steps, and this very field of calm is the strongest message sent into the mirror of the world. Relationships begin to change their responses to you. Conversations soften, new doors open, not because the outer suddenly improved, but because you no longer let the outer decide who you are. In nightly practice, I often advise to keep the final scene of the day as a sacred secret. When lying down, do not retell the old story to yourself. Tell the story of who you have become. Feel it flowing into your muscles, into your heartbeat, into your mouth. Then let sleep carry that scene into the depths where the subconscious records without editing. In the morning when you wake, do not check evidence first. Check the state. If the state is still on the right frequency, you are on track. And evidence will follow like a shadow follows form. When facing contrary evidence, call it a late wave, a wave from the old climate. You do not fight the wave. You stand firm on the shore. Keep the breath. Keep the feeling of sufficiency. Let the wave fade. This is how you refuse to extend a contract with the past. Each time is another affirmation of the true order. Cause first, result after, inner first, order after. I have seen silent yet vast shifts. A person once straining after love, after resting in the feeling of being loved, suddenly no longer needs to prove or cling. And precisely when they stand tall in dignity, old relationships reveal their true quality, and new ones appear because the mirror has changed form. In work, it is the same. When a person stops carrying the frequency of pleading and shifts into the frequency of contribution and sufficiency, they see opportunities once hidden. They speak differently, write differently, choose differently, so results cannot remain the same. This is not chance. This is the mechanics of consciousness. Inner truth being greater than outer evidence is never a denial of reality. It is an invitation to return to the place of co-creator. You do not break the law. You move with the law. You stop worshiping the numbers and begin tending the state. And when the state rules, the numbers must update. The world has no choice but to reflect you back to yourself, because the mirror cannot lie. The mirror only repeats the form before it. Therefore, choose the form you want the world to repeat. Hold it long enough. Give it breath and gratitude. And then when you forget to check, evidence will quietly appear as the obvious, because in the order of the Creator, cause always comes first and inner truth is always sovereign. The soul dialoguing with itself is not a vague idea, but a reality unfolding every minute in your life. Because every prayer, every sigh, every image and feeling is not directed towards some distant force, but turns inward to the deepest center, where you and the Creator are one. I have seen in the readings that when people think they are pleading with the universe, in truth they are only speaking to their own soul, and that soul never ignores a single sound. It records everything, it stores everything. It turns it into a background state from which the outer world reconstructs the stage. This means you cannot escape the dialogue with yourself. You are always in it, whether consciously or not. When you whisper, "I am not enough," when you tell yourself, "I am afraid," you are engraving on the inner tablet of the soul clear commands, and the subconscious will not ask why you believe. So it only records as law and reflects it back through life's experiences. On the other hand, when you dare to place new images in the mind, when you allow yourself to hear another voice rising within, the voice of one already healed, already sufficient, already loved, you have changed the content of the dialogue, and in that very moment, the entire situation shifts. No one can replace you in this conversation. Teachers, parents, friends may speak 1,000 words, but the deciding voice is still the one you choose to believe and repeat inside. In the readings, I have seen souls carrying wounds from the past. They thought memory was something beyond control. But when I looked at the energy flow, I saw memory as old conversations they had not cut off. They kept repeating the story of hurt, and each repetition reinforced the false truth that they were powerless. Only when they stopped and began to replace it with another story, with another vision, did they see the curtain fall. The soul does not reject you. It waits for you to change your tone. You need to understand that inner dialogue is continuous prayer, and that prayer never ceases. It is not limited to when you kneel or recite. It happens while you drive, while you sit alone, while you think silently in your head, and every line of thought is a seed dropped into the subconscious. Therefore, it is no surprise that life only reflects what you repeatedly tell yourself. I often advise to observe how you speak to yourself, because in it you will see the cause of the circumstances out there. If you see life filled with rejection, listen. Is it not that inside you often whisper you are unworthy? If you find love difficult to hold, is it not that inside you keep the dialogue that you are easy to abandon? When you change the script in that silent conversation, the outer world must change with it. But this renewal is not simply repeating a few affirmations. It must be tied to feeling, because the soul only responds to what you truly feel. You may say, "I am at peace," but if your heart still pounds in fear, the words carry no effect. But if you sit quietly and let the breath soothe, let the image of peace spread, then the soul records that and turns it into a command. In the readings, I have witnessed people reaching great change, not because they prayed more, but because they changed the way they spoke to themselves, from pleading and doubting to affirming and trusting. They stopped saying, "I will one day," and began to say, "I am now, I am living in it." And that energy spread out like ripples on water, drawing events and people to reflect the new. This is not fantasy, but law. When the soul dialogues with itself in completeness, it sends a clear signal into the energy field, and that field is like a vast mirror, never rejecting but always returning the image, impressed. Therefore, what you see outside is only the inner conversation projected. If you want to change life, change the dialogue. In the silent nights when the body sinks into sleep, that is when the dialogue imprints deepest. Choose the stories you want to hear again tomorrow. Let the soul hear the voice of faith rather than fear. When you wake, check the dialogue, hold it like a sacred secret, nurture it like a flame, so that each day the soul and the outer world sing together a new song. This is the sharp truth. I have realized that you have never been speaking to a distant universe. You have only been speaking to your own divine essence. And that essence always answers exactly what you send, in not missing a beat, not missing a word. Sowing the seed and letting go is a principle I have seen in many readings. And it is not only true for soil and harvest, but also for every field of spiritual life, every thought, every image. Every feeling you allow to sink into the subconscious is like a seed falling into the fertile ground of the soul. If you know how to sow the right seed, you will see the harvest. But there is one condition that cannot be missing after sowing. You must let go. Every farmer understands that if after planting he digs the soil up every day to check whether the seed has sprouted, that very impatience will destroy the fragile life. In the same way, when you have planted in the subconscious the image of completion, when you have let the feeling of sufficiency cover your body, then continuing to worry, to doubt, or to keep asking, when it will arrive, is no different than uprooting the seed. You just place down. The subconscious does not work under pressure. It works under faith, and faith is shown most clearly in your ability to let go. Letting go is not abandoning desire. It is acknowledging that what you have sown has been received, that the law of creation has already begun to work, and you do not need to interfere further. I have observed many in the readings. Some prayed fervently, some visualized with focus, but right after they released countless doubts, and they asked why they did not see results. The truth is they sowed but did not let go. They planted and then uprooted with words of denial. Letting go is the highest expression of faith. When you can close your eyes and say within that it is done, and afterward live in serenity, you have given the seed the condition to sprout. Every time you return to doubt, you dry the soil further. In the readings, I often saw these spiritual seeds shine in the soul like small sparks of energy, and they need time to gather and connect with other energy fields, then slowly take form in the material world. If you interrupt too soon, that gathering disperses and you only see the old scene repeat. Letting go is also an art of living, because it frees you from the burden of controlling everything. When you let go, you agree that a greater intelligence is at work, an invisible hand is adjusting. You do not abandon responsibility for life, but you abandon the obsession that you must know every method and every timing. And strangely, it is then that everything flows more smoothly. Imagine you are sowing a seed of love. You picture the feeling of being loved. You let your heart beat in warm embrace. Then you release it and go to sleep. The next morning, you do not need to check the phone at once to see if someone messaged. You do not need to scan each person to see who might be destiny. You simply live in that frequency, leaving the law of resonance to connect you with the right person at the right time. This is called sowing and letting go. If you sow and keep trying to control, you will accidentally send out the signal of lack, and the world will return more lack. Letting go is also the act of freeing imagination, so it can work freely. When you keep forcing intervention, you shrink possibility into one single path, while the universe has countless ways to bring you to the result. I have witnessed people desiring prosperity. They imagined wealth, but instead of clinging to the form it must arrive in, they only held the feeling of abundance and left the door open. Then prosperity came through new work, new relationships, even unexpected opportunities they had never thought of. Had they forced themselves into one channel, they would have missed every other way. Therefore, letting go is opening the door for greater intelligence to arrange. Sowing and letting go also teaches patience. A seed needs time, and time is not an enemy, but a collaborator. Everything you desire already exists in the unseen world, but to gather and manifest in the material realm, it requires a process. Patience is the sign you trust that the process is working, while impatience only shows you have not truly believed. I affirm in every reading that no seed sown in true faith fails to sprout, only seeds abandoned by constant doubt. When you understand this, you panic less, you plead less, and you rest more. You know that your responsibility is only to choose the seed and sow the seed. The rest belongs to the soil, the rain, the light, that is, to the subconscious and the laws of the universe. Remember, no seed sprouts in the hand of one who holds it tightly. Only when it is placed in the ground and released does life begin. So it is with your life, so through imagination, through genuine feeling, and then let go, so that the universe can complete its part. Doubt is the silent enemy of the soul. It is not as loud as fear, nor as fierce as anger, but it erodes faith little by little, causing the seed planted in the subconscious to be cut off. Like a tender sprout broken by an invisible hand, I have seen in many readings that souls are not lacking in dreams, nor in prayers or practice, but they allow a single moment of doubt to collapse the structure they have worked hard to build. Doubt arises from the human need for immediate proof. They look around and see circumstances unchanged. They conclude that what they planted is useless, and that very conclusion becomes a new command to the subconscious, which then instantly redirects the entire flow to align with that false command. If you understand the law, you will see clearly that doubt is not intelligent verification, but only impatience disguised as reason. When you plant a seed, you do not demand it sprout overnight. You know, soil and time are working in silence. But in the spiritual world, many refuse this natural law. They want evidence immediately, and when they do not see it, they deny, and that denial is like watering the soil with salt where the seed was being nourished. Doubt also often appears when you compare yourself with others. You see someone else receive results faster. You conclude perhaps the law does not apply to you, and that conclusion becomes your personal truth. But in the readings, I have seen that each soul has its own rhythm, its own lesson, and comparison only disrupts the process. Like planting rice and then looking at a flower garden, complaining why your crop does not bloom in bright colors. You are not called to bloom as they do. You are called to ripen in your own season, and that season will come if you keep steady. Overcoming doubt is not by suppressing it, because the more you resist, the stronger it becomes, but by gently returning to the final scene, returning to the feeling of sufficiency, allowing the new image and feeling to gradually replace the old flow. When doubt whispers, do not engage. Simply nurture faith by returning. Do not argue with darkness. Light another flame. This requires perseverance and discipline of mind. In the readings, I have seen that souls successful in shaping reality are those who know how to return again and again. They do not prevent doubt from appearing, but they refuse to let it rule. Each time doubt knocks, they open another door for faith to enter, and over time, doubt loses its strength because it is no longer fed. Another truth to remember is that doubt is not an outside enemy. It is the old voice of the ego, the familiar voice reminding you that you are not enough, not worthy, not heard. If you recognize it as an echo of the past, you stop giving it power. You will know it is only a late wave from the old state, and late waves cannot last if you do not feed them. Overcoming doubt means you learn to stand firm in the state you have chosen, even when the outside has not yet changed. It is a test of faith, not a punishment, but an opportunity to prove to yourself that you trust the law more than fleeting images. If you can endure, the world will gradually bend, because the law cannot fail. Only you waver. I've witnessed decisive moments when a soul chose to believe one more day, one more week, and right after that a door opened, not because the universe suddenly changed its mind, but because they finally overcame the final test of the subconscious. Doubt always challenges you at the gate. But once you pass through, you see the result flow like water, long stored, only waiting for the dam to break. Therefore, the key is not to let doubt pull you out of state. Treat it like a passing wind, while you are the root anchored deep in the soil. When it comes, return to the image of completion. Let the breath carry you into that feeling, and let steady repetition itself become the answer. Doubt will fade, and you will realize the true strength of your soul, a strength not born from seeing evidence, but from choosing faith even when evidence is absent. And in that very moment, you have overcome doubt. Faith is not a spark that flashes and disappears, but a continuous flow. And I have seen in many readings that souls who know how to keep faith, as one keeps a river, always full, find their lives overflowing and guided to where they need to be. I know many think faith is a strong burst during prayer, a fleeting feeling when hearing a sermon or reading a passage. But if it stops there, it is like a sudden rain shower on dry ground, soaking in and then evaporating, not enough to nourish the seed. True faith must become a flow, meaning it runs day and night. Not only when you close your eyes in prayer, but also when you open your eyes and walk in ordinary life. I have seen in cases of healing that people did not recover because of one emotional moment, but because they kept the flow of faith through every day, every breath, every choice. When they thought of their body, they thought of it as already restored. When they ate as one who is healthy. When they slept in the feeling of wholeness. It was this continuous flow that gave the subconscious no chance to waver. It was constantly bathed in a single signal until it reflected as evidence. I realized that faith is like a river. It never stops flowing. It is not rushed, but it never halts. And whatever you place into that river will be carried to its destination. If you place doubt or fear, the flow will carry and scatter experiences to match. If you place certainty and peace, the flow will lead you to the land of sufficiency. The danger is that many only pour a few drops of faith, while the rest of the stream is filled with worry, and then they are surprised when the result is a chaotic current. I have seen clearly that no faith is ever lost. It always produces results. The only question is whether you are believing in what you want or believing in what you fear. The flow does not distinguish. It is only loyal to the content you pour in. Therefore, the lesson here is you must become the keeper of the source, keeping the stream clear, not letting the debris of doubt and fear continuously rush in. One who keeps faith as a flow does not need to strain with affirmations all the time. They do not need to shout to prove. They only need to quietly live in that state so that every small action flows from faith. When they speak, their words carry certainty. When they walk, their steps carry confidence. When they are silent, that silence is not empty, but filled with signals. That is the power of a continuous flow. It permeates every detail and turns the whole of life into evidence. I remember once in a reading I saw the image of a man, exhausted by illness. Yet deep in his soul there was still a small spark. He believed he would recover, and he kept that spark every night, every morning, never letting it go out. Though outwardly his body was frail, inside him faith flowed like a silent river. And one day the result came, not with noise, but with certainty, because the flow never betrays the one who keeps it. Faith does not demand that you be strong every moment. It only requires that you do not let the flow run dry. If at times the water weakens, you add more. If at times the rain is scarce, you patiently wait for the season, as long as you do not let it dry completely. I often say true faith is not an explosive emotion. It is consistent repetition. It is like the heartbeat, not hurried, but always present. Remember that the outer world only reflects the inner flow. If inside you is a flow of peace, then circumstances must find a way to reflect that peace. If inside you is a flow of unrest, then even if you try to hide it, circumstances will find a way to expose it. Faith as a flow means you stop thinking of it as a scattered act and begin to see it as a continuous climate. You live in it, breathe it, let it soak into every cell, every decision, every reaction. When you do this, you will see you no longer ask when and how, because the flow has already carried you. You simply drift with it, and when you arrive, you will know it was the inevitable destination. I affirm that once faith becomes a flow, everything outside must yield, for nothing can resist a persistent river. It may bend, it may take time, but in the end it will wear down even mountains of stone to find its way to the great sea. The immutable law that I have seen in countless readings is the foundation of all creation, and whether people believe it or not, it still operates, for the law does not rely on personal belief to exist. It simply reflects. This law can be expressed briefly as the outer world is only the faithful mirror of the inner state, without exception, without deviation, because energy cannot lie. When you accept something as true, whether you speak it aloud or not, the law will arrange circumstances, people, and events to confirm it. If you believe you are rejected, you will meet rejection. If you believe you are loved, you will see love. If you believe that abundance is your nature, you will see opportunity everywhere. This law does not care how many times you pray, how many affirmations you recite, or how much philosophy, It only responds faithfully to the underlying state. You nurture. That is why I call it immutable, because it cannot be negotiated. It cannot be bribed, and it cannot be delayed. This explains why some pray for years without results, because they do not live in the state of what they ask for. They still maintain the climate of lack, and the law simply reflects the climate. In the readings, I clearly saw that the subconscious does not distinguish between real and unreal. It only identifies frequency and imprints it, then lets the law operate to bring that frequency into form. Just as any seed will sprout according to its nature, you cannot sow rice and expect roses. The law does not permit distortion. Whatever nature is sown into the subconscious, that form must appear. This is why I always emphasize that you must carefully choose what you accept, because whether you are conscious of it or not, acceptance is still the affirmation the law will enforce. I have observed many people struggle against outer circumstances without realizing they are fighting the mirror. The more they resist, the more clearly the mirror reflects. The only way to change the reflection is to change the image before the mirror, but people often make the mistake of trying to adjust the shadow instead of the source of light. The immutable law also shows a truth that every word you utter in your mind carries weight. Even a fleeting thought, if repeated enough, becomes a state, and that state is the command. You cannot deceive the law with one moment of affirmation and then spend the rest of the day in worry. The law will not listen to the affirmation. The law will listen to the repeated state, and state is the sum of emotions, thoughts, images, and reactions. In the readings, I have seen souls who did not understand this law. They blamed fate. They thought some force was deliberately testing them. But the truth was simpler. It was only the law of reflection. If you see a painful experience repeating, it is not because you are cursed, but because you have accepted an inner role and the law faithfully fulfills that role, when you change the role, the law immediately changes the scene. What matters is that this law is impartial. It does not choose rich or poor. It does not distinguish between faiths or cultures. It applies to all, and precisely for that reason, whoever understands and lives by it will see change, because the law cannot refuse a clear signal. I remember once seeing a woman who carried resentment for many years. She constantly encountered betrayal, and she thought her life was destined. But when she finally released the resentment and sowed gratitude in her heart, after a short time she met new people, completely different experiences, not because of a miracle, but because the law of reflection had changed form. This immutable law can make you afraid if you think of what you have been repeating in your mind, but it can also give you freedom, because you know that no external power is obstructing you, only you and the state you choose. When you understand this, you will stop pleading, stop blaming, stop waiting. You will begin to take responsibility for every vibration you send out. This is not a burden. It is power, because when you take responsibility, you regain control. When you know the law is always operating, you stop asking when and start asking, what am I accepting right now? And that answer will tell you with certainty what form will appear. I affirm that once the soul touches this truth, it will no longer waver. It will stand firm in the final scene, regardless of outer evidence, because it knows evidence is only an old result. It will sow with rest, and it will release with certainty, and then, as the law decrees, it will reap exactly the season it has sown. That is the power, and also the absolute justice of the immutable law, a law no one can break, but anyone can cooperate with to make life the reflection of what they truly desire. Becoming instead of waiting is the key principle. I have witnessed many times in the readings. It marks the boundary between souls who keep struggling in prayer and souls who know how to live in their creative power. Most people live in the state of waiting. They wait for a miracle to arrive, wait for a door to open, wait for others to change, wait for a great sign. And that very state of waiting sends the opposite signal that they do not have. They are not enough. They are not ready. The law of reflection does not understand desire or longing. It only understands state. And if the state is waiting, the law will keep you in the endless loop of waiting. I have seen many who pray for love. They say they want to be loved, but every action, every thought sends out the signal of loneliness. They lock themselves in the climate of lack and then complain why love does not come. On the other hand, when someone dares to step into the state of being loved, they begin to care for themselves. They walk with dignity, they speak with warmth, they give respect, and from that, climate love cannot help but arrive. This is the difference between waiting and becoming. Waiting always looks outward, while becoming always begins within. To become means you wear the nature of what you desire. You put it on like a new garment and live with it each day until it becomes your natural climate. If you want prosperity, do not wait until money arrives to feel enough. Become prosperous now. Think as they think. Choose as they choose. Feel in every breath that abundance is already present. When you do this, the subconscious receives a clear command, and the entire flow of life begins to turn. Becoming is an act of courage because it goes against the logic of the senses. The senses always tell you to believe only when you see, but the immutable law teaches you must see with the inner eye before the outer eye reflects. When you become, you have implanted a new image into the subconscious, and the subconscious cannot deny it. In the readings, I once saw a man desiring healing. He did not wait for test results to believe. He lived as one already healthy. He walked, he talked, he smiled from that state, and every cell in him gradually adjusted to match the belief. This shows that truth lies in what you accept yourself to be right now. If you accept yourself as one who waits, you will always wait. But if you accept yourself as one who's become, then everything outside will quickly find a way to confirm it. Becoming, instead of waiting, also frees you from dependence on time. Waiting is always tied to the future, but becoming is always anchored in the present. When you become now, you do not need to calculate dates or hours because you are already living in the result. And strangely, it is precisely when you stop paying attention to time that evidence appears faster. I have seen many witness results immediately after they truly surrendered into the state of having, not because the universe suddenly changed its mind, but because they finally stopped delaying. The delay was never outside. It was in the posture of waiting. When you live as though you have already become, you also send a clear message to everyone around you. They begin to see you differently. They respond differently. And from there, your environment changes. If you walk with the confidence of a successful person, you will be given respect and opportunity as a successful person. If you speak with the peace of one already loved, you will create space for love to pour in. Becoming is not pretending. It is choosing to live from the true nature already within you, but hidden under old habits. When you become, you are remembering, not inventing. This is a subtle but decisive difference. In the readings, I have seen that every soul carries the seed of every possibility. The problem is not lack, but unwillingness to activate. Becoming is the act of activation, the decisive affirmation that you have chosen, and that choice will draw every circumstance into the same frequency. Therefore, the lesson here is very clear. You do not need to wait for favorable conditions. You do not need to wait for permission. You do not need to wait for recognition. You only need to step into the state right now. Sit down, take a deep breath, and let the feeling of the desire cover your whole body. Then rise and act from that place. Every step taken in this way is a cut into the old flow. And gradually you will see the entire course of life turn. Becoming instead of waiting is the reminder that you are not a beggar. You are a co-creator, and co-creation begins only when you dare to live in the result before the evidence appears. When you have tasted the feeling of what is completed and choose to remain in it, you have become, and when you become, the world has no choice but to reflect you back to yourself. When you wake in the middle of the night, it is rarely a random accident of the body. It is often the gentle bell of the soul, inviting you back to the thin doorway between waking and dreaming, where every command sent into the subconscious is received most quickly. In the readings, I have seen this moment like the tide turning. If you know how to direct the current, the whole next day will change color. If you miss it, the old habits will continue steering the boat. Therefore, the first thing is not to check the clock or turn on the phone. The first thing is to keep the darkness still, to let the breath slow and deepen, to let the body know there is no danger, then gently call back the final scene you planted before sleep. Do not analyze, do not add the details. Just slip back into the feeling of enough, of peace, of completion, like someone picking up a thread and continuing to weave the unfinished cloth. I have observed many souls. In the middle of the night, they awaken with a trivial thought and allow it to expand. They turn on lights. They scroll through news. They let the body believe there is a problem. And just a few minutes like that are enough to break the command they had planted. In contrast, there are those who, when waking, know this is an invitation to add energy to the seed. They stay still, place a hand on the chest, hear the heartbeat slow, call back the essence of the result. And in just a few breaths, the curtain of calm descends. They drift back to sleep like one lying on warm water. In the morning they wake not knowing why they feel so light. That is the result of knowing how to use the night as a temple. When you wake in the night, you do not need to construct elaborate images, because at this time the subconscious favors simplicity. Choose a single moment to represent the result: an awaited embrace, a confirming email, an open door. Then do not look with the inner eye too long. Feel it with the body. Let the shoulders release as though real support is before you. Let the stomach soften as though good news was just spoken. Let the mouth lift as though you heard the answer. Feeling is the command. Feeling is the seal. And in the night this seal is stamped without flaw. If a thought intrudes asking if this is real, if you are only dreaming too much, do not engage. Return to breath. And the chosen essence, remember, the law does not ask if you are worthy. The law only reflects state. Every second you stand in the state of enough is every second you pull the world into that orbit. And in the night, when the noise of the day has quieted, the signal travels further, deeper. Some say they often wake from nightmares. I say nightmares are reminders that an old story needs rewriting. As soon as you open your eyes, do not rush to analyze the dream. Change the ending. If you saw yourself falling, let the body feel the feet land on firm ground. If you saw yourself being chased, let your back straighten and feel the footsteps fall silent. If you saw loss, let your chest warm, as if receiving back. Only change the final note, and the entire song shifts. Repeat this for a few nights. The dream adjusts, and your waking day rises on a new map. Many worry that waking at night will bring insomnia. I see it is usually the worry itself that creates insomnia, because the body learns from the command of the mind. If you call this moment a problem, the body releases alarm signals. But if you call it sacred hour, the body shifts into ritual mode. Heart slows, muscles loosen, nervous system lays down weapons, and the subconscious opens. Try placing the right hand on the chest and the left on the belly. Count slowly to 5 on inhale and slowly to 7 on exhale. 3 rounds are enough for the body to understand. Then whisper with the body, without words, that the result is present. Then let that simple image drift like a paper boat. You do not cling. Do not grasp. Do not measure. You only release it into the stream. If you remain awake, stay in that feeling, like lying in a warm spring. If you sleep, let the sleep carry it into the deep, where every command is inscribed. Sometimes you will wake in the night with an idea, an intuition, an answer. If it comes with peace, you may jot a few words in small writing. Without bright light, without stirring the mind, after writing, return to the feeling of enough. Do not let the mind turn the intuition into a meeting. For meetings, wake the body, while intuition only needs to be placed in the flow and continue being incubated in sleep. In the morning it will ripen. If you do turn on the phone and see something that unsettles the heart, do not punish yourself. Even in bed you can redirect. Turn off the screen. Place your hand on the chest. Exhale as if releasing a heavy weight. And remember that whatever you read is only a late wave. No news has the right to define you unless you agree. Return to your command. Enough. Peace. Done. Then lie on your side in the most comfortable position while keeping the long breath. Within minutes, the nervous system changes state, and the night returns to you. In many readings, I saw those who practiced this habit had lives that changed markedly. They were no longer dragged by nightly surprises. Instead, they used the night to reprogram, like a conductor adjusting the track when the station is empty. A small change in the night, leading the train to a different station by day. And because they worked at the level of cause, new results appeared without noise. This is also the time to train trust, because in the night everyone tends to exaggerate problems. The darkness gives the mind threads to weave. But if you persist in choosing the essence of enough and releasing, you are teaching the subconscious that you trust the law more than fleeting images. This trust accumulates night by night, and one morning you will wake to a different sun, not because the sun changed, but because you changed the inner climate. I remind you of one more subtle point. Do not turn the night ritual into a test. Do not wake and ask if it worked. Replace the question with habit. Every waking is a return. No counting, no grading. Only repetition. Like the keeper of the lighthouse does not boast of each flame. He simply lights them, and ships find their way. So too with your life. You relight the essence of the result, and circumstances will find their way to confirm. If sometimes you lie long before sleep returns, use that space as a time of gentle reflection. Recall 3 recent moments of gratitude: a face, a meal, a breeze. Let the heart remember the feeling of having received. Then release. Do not try to force sleep. Simply stay in calm. Sleep will come like a bird landing on the hand of one who is still. And if there is a night when you forget, in the morning you still have another chance. But better is tonight. At the very next waking, treat it as an open door. Step through with a long breath, with a hand on the chest, with a simple final scene. And with fearless release, you will find the night becomes an ally, and your soul returns to the place of the scriptwriter, where every waking is only another press of the record button, letting the song you have chosen continue to play through the day to come. The sacred solitude is not the frightening emptiness many imagine, but a space destined for the soul to be cleansed of the noise and attachments of the outer world. I have seen in many readings that every soul must pass through a season of being set apart, placed in darkness and silence, not to be abandoned, but to be prepared, because only in that silence can you hear the true voice of the deepest self. Sacred solitude is when old relationships depart, opportunities close, familiar doors shut, and people usually panic. They believe they are losing everything. But if you look from the perspective of the soul, you will see it as an act of refinement, like a seed that must decay in the soil, must endure the dark, must lose its old form before breaking forth into the light. If the seed had consciousness, it would surely feel buried. But in truth, it would be in the most sacred stage of transformation. Solitude is the same. It is not an ending. It is a gestation. In the readings, I often saw that every great soul has a season of being pulled into the dark. Sometimes it is illness, sometimes loss, sometimes a long silence, and in that emptiness, they learn how to dialogue with their innermost being instead of relying on external noise. People often cannot bear solitude because they fear facing themselves. But it is this very facing that is the turning point when all outer voices fall silent. Only then do you hear the voice of the Creator, and that voice never speaks in clamor. It only whispers in stillness. Sacred solitude also teaches you the lesson of faith, because when all outer evidence disappears, you have only one choice left: to believe in what is not yet seen, to believe in what you have planted. This is the most important test, for if you only believe when there is evidence, that is not faith, that is only observation. True faith only appears when the darkness is thickest. I have witnessed many souls who, when placed in solitude, awakened a new strength. Because they had nowhere else to cling, they began to cling to their own inner core. And from that, a completely new quality was born. You may call it rebirth. And truly sacred solitude is the womb of rebirth. No silence is meaningless. Every time you are placed in emptiness, it is a sign that you are being restructured. Remember that an instrument only plays true notes after it has been tuned in tension. and the soul is the same. Only in the tension of solitude can its true song be revealed. In the readings, I saw many complain of loneliness, but when they learned to see loneliness as the withdrawal of a musician before the performance, they began to recognize its value. They stopped resisting and began to embrace, and in that moment, loneliness transformed into sacred solitude. It was no longer the enemy, but the teacher. Sacred solitude is like the cocoon of a caterpillar. From the outside, it looks like a prison, but inside transformation is unfolding. If you intervene and tear the cocoon too soon, the butterfly will never fly. But if you leave it be, the metamorphosis will complete and the wings will open. So it is with your life. When you're placed in silence, do not rush to tear the cocoon. Do not demand evidence. Allow the process to work. This is not delay. It is preparation. I affirm that no soul reaches maturity without passing through sacred solitude. The laughter, the festivals, the outer successes are only the fruit. The roots are always planted deep in the dark and quiet soil. If you are in solitude, know that you are in holy ground. And instead of resisting, let your heart open. Observe, listen, let the stillness teach you what noise never can. For when you emerge from this season, you will no longer be the same. You will carry a quality no one can take away, the quality of inner independence and unshakable faith. This is why I call solitude sacred, because it is the hidden hand of God, the chapel in the dark, the cocoon preparing the wings. I have seen in countless readings that the universe operates like a vast mirror, reflecting without error whatever you nurture inside. And when you understand this truth, you no longer blame circumstances. For circumstances are only the result of the pictures you hang in your inner world. The mirror of the universe does not choose in your favor or against you. It is entirely neutral. It simply returns the image you present. If inside you is filled with anxiety, the mirror will project a life full of anxious events. If inside you carries the feeling of sufficiency, the mirror will project opportunities, people, and events that confirm that sufficiency. I often say that you cannot stand before a mirror with a frown and expect it to return a smile. Likewise, you cannot carry the climate of lack and expect life to bring you prosperity. In the readings, I clearly saw streams of energy radiating from a person like rays of light, and those rays did not vanish. They touched the energetic field of the world and returned in the form of experiences. You may ask why you keep encountering repeated circumstances, and the answer is because you still hold the same old dialogue, the same old state, the same old belief. So the mirror has no choice but to return the old image. The power lies in the fact that when you change the image, the mirror has no choice but to change the reflection. This is a sharp and absolute law. I recall a woman in the readings. She always believed that people would abandon her, and indeed relationships kept leaving. When she began to change her inner dialogue, instead of repeating the story of abandonment, she nurtured the image of being chosen and cherished. And in a short time, she experienced a new relationship, stable and warm. It was not that the universe changed. It was that the mirror changed form. You can verify this within yourself. Notice that when you carry gratitude in your heart, you will meet situations that give you more reasons to be grateful. While when you carry irritation, the whole day seems to bring more reasons to be irritated. That is not chance. It is reflection. I affirm that this mirror is absolutely fair. It misses no detail. It reflects even fleeting thoughts, even emotions you believe no one sees. And it returns them through experiences, sometimes subtle, sometimes very clear. Therefore, responsibility no longer lies in trying to control the outside, but in choosing what image you reflect from within. In the readings, I once saw a man who carried bitterness about his work. He always believed he was disadvantaged, undervalued, and the mirror of the universe returned to him unfair superiors, competitive colleagues, when he learned to change his inner image, replacing bitterness with the belief that he carried unique value. In a short time, new opportunities opened, new work arrived, and he was recognized rightly. This was not a miracle. It was the mirror reflecting the new image. Many blame fate, but fate is only the movie replaying the inner script. If you want to change the movie, change the script. What matters is that the mirror does not reflect what you superficially wish for, but what you truly believe and feel. If you say you are wealthy but deep inside tremble with lack, the mirror will reflect lack. If you say you are loved but still fear abandonment, the mirror will reflect departure. The mirror does not hear words. The mirror hears state. Therefore, the task is not to affirm superficially, but to nurture the true state. In the readings, I often advise that whenever you look into an actual mirror, remember the mirror of the universe and ask yourself what face you are carrying in your mind, for that is the face the world will reflect. Do not forget that the universal mirror has another important characteristic. It does not know delay. It only knows synchrony. If there is delay, it is because you waver. You send one image and then another, and the mirror is confused about which to reflect. So the results appear inconsistent once you hold a steady image without wavering. The mirror reflects clearly. I emphasize that steadiness is not straining, but resting in the feeling of having. When you remain in that state long enough, the mirror must return evidence. This explains why spiritual masters seem to have the world aligned in their favor, not because they are given preference, but because they have mastered the inner image, and the mirror only faithfully reflects. I want you to understand deeply that the mirror of the universe never lies. It does not add, it does not distort. It only reflects exactly you. If you want to change your life, you do not need to beg the mirror. You only need to change the image you carry, and when you change, the entire universe will bow to confirm. This is the truth I have seen repeat endlessly, and it is one of the surest laws a soul can grasp to become a co-creator with God. The nightly practice is the ritual of resetting the root state of the soul. The moment you unplug from the noise of the day and realign the mirror of the universe, I have seen in countless readings that those who turn the evening into a consistent ritual see the climate of their life change markedly after only a short time. So treat this part as a concrete map to step into. It does not need to be complicated, only in the right order. First is cleansing the energy field. At least 30 minutes before sleep, you turn off the screens, lower the lights to a warm and dim tone, give the body a clear signal that the day has closed. If possible, take a sip of warm water, wash your face with warm water, brush the hair slowly. These small acts teach the nervous system to lay down its weapons. Then prepare the bed as if preparing an altar. The fewer objects scattered, the better, because outer order reflects inner order. The next step is to place the body in a posture of receiving, lying on the back or side, comfortably, relaxing shoulders and neck, placing the right hand on the chest and the left hand on the belly to be aware of heartbeat and breath. Inhale slowly to 5, exhale long to 7. 6 rounds of such breathing are enough for body and mind to synchronize. If thoughts intrude, do not argue. Only return to counting the breath. Once centered, you begin to release the entanglements of the day. Review 3 moments still lingering in the chest. Name them lightly in the mind. Then rewrite the ending of each with a calm frame. For example, a tense conversation turned into a nod of understanding. A bill that worried you turned into the feeling of having dealt with it. A closed door turned into another opening. The aim is not to rewrite history, but to release energy, because the subconscious records essence, not justification. After clearing the ground, choose one core desire to plant tonight. only one. The more condensed, the stronger. Compress it into a single frame representing the result. It could be a signing hand, a short message, laughter in an embrace, light steps on a new path. Then, more important than the frame is the essence behind it. Sufficiency, being loved, safety, freedom. Let this essence cover the body like a warm blanket. Shoulders drop. If soft tense, eyes closed, with corners of the mouth slightly lifted. Do not force emotion. Let the body lead. If you need a stepping stone, use a short phrase in the heart such as, I am enough. I am loved. I am safe. But only as a launch pad for the essence to rise. Once the essence is cleared, drop the words. Now comes the feeling. Pause at the point where the feeling becomes evident in the body, in the chest or in the belly. Exhale, long as if signing the word done, and allow the frame to fade, holding only the essence, because essence is the command to the subconscious. Do not check, do not push. This is the moment of release. Release is the final signature, proving you trust. The law is at work. If thoughts return, do not wrestle. Simply draw attention back to the breath at the nose. Feel the cool tip on inhale and the warmth on exhale. Then invite the essence back like a light fragrance. Repeat a few cycles and let yourself drift into sleep. If sleep does not come, just stay in that essence. Sleep will arrive as the natural result of calm. If you wake in the night, do not turn on the light or touch the phone. This is sacred hour. Place hands again on chest and belly. 3 rounds of 5 in and 7 out. Pick up the single frame and essence you chose. Inhale deeply once as if stamping, then release. If a bad dream has just passed, change its final note and let it drift away. You do not analyze content. You repair the climate. In the morning, the ritual is not yet complete. Rise from bed with a small gesture affirming the state. A slow stretch, a wordless thank you, a warm cup of water, and most importantly, do not check for evidence immediately. Check for state. If the calm essence remains, carry it into 2 or 3 small actions at the start of the day. Arranging the desk, replying to a message in a new tone, choosing a breakfast aligned with the body. Small steps are the path to big evidence. While contrary signs in the day are only late waves, call them late waves and let them fade. Once a week, refine the ritual without grading. The only question is which step makes the essence clearest. You may add a gentle scent, a wordless piece of music, a salt lump. You may change posture, add a page of gratitude before lying down, but only add if it deepens the essence. Avoid piling on too many things, because the simpler the ritual, the deeper it goes. A few common mistakes to avoid are changing scenes too often, which confuses the mirror. Tonight one desire, tomorrow another is possible, but always complete the cycle. Repeating many affirmations without feeling only creates empty echoes. Counting days and checking constantly sends the signal of lack. Telling too many people too soon risks pulling in the force of their doubt. So keep the ritual as a sacred secret. Let it germinate in silence. If you have children, shift work, or noisy surroundings, you can still practice a shortened version. 5 minutes of no screens, 3 rounds of breath, 1 frame, 1 essence, 1 release. Repeat like the ringing of a temple bell. The subconscious does not need long duration. It needs clear and consistent signals. For those in healing, you may add scanning the body from feet to head. Where there is tension, breathe into it and silently send the chosen essence there. Especially the belly and chest, as these are 2 great gates. When the body rests, the command goes deeper. For those creating work, choose a frame that touches the feeling of value, being recognized, such as a confirming email, a handshake, or a signing moment. But always remember, essence comes before frame. As for timing, try to fix a similar hour each night, so body and mind form reflex. If late, still do a short version. Do not skip, because one night broken will let excuses stretch. Consistency is the background music of miracles. When the ritual becomes habit, you will notice a subtle thing. You need less effort in imagining, because the essence has become the base climate. Entering bed, the body automatically shifts channel. Subconscious opens gate, and you go straight into calm. That is when you know you have left the realm of begging and entered fully into co-creation. Night after night, you plant with awareness, release with trust, and morning after morning, the mirror of the universe reflects the climate you nurtured. This is not an unusual miracle. It is the law working as steadily as the tide. Your part is to come to the shore on time and light the lantern rightly. The rest belongs to the sea. Trusting the process is one of the hardest lessons I have observed in many readings, because people always want immediate evidence. They want to see the sprout break through the soil the day after planting the seed. They want to hear the answer. As soon as their prayer is spoken, and when they do not see it, they quickly conclude that the law is not working, that their desire is an illusion. But it is precisely this impatience that makes them uproot the seed from the fertile ground of the subconscious. The process has its own order. It is not subject to the timetable imposed by reason. It follows the arrangement of a greater intelligence, where every piece falls into place at the right moment. I once saw in a reading the image of a vast field where seeds had been sown and were silently cracking open, but the sower saw nothing above the ground. Despair walked away, and only a day later the sprouts emerged, but there was no one there to receive them. This repeats itself in human life when they are patient, but only a little short of the breakthrough. They turn away and miss the harvest. Trusting the process means living in the certainty that what has been planted will sprout, even if evidence has not yet appeared. Resting in the knowing that the law of reflection is always exact, allowing the seed time to open on its own, ceasing to dig up the soil, ceasing to ask when, and instead focusing on maintaining the state of already having, allowing the subconscious to do its work. The important thing to understand is that the process not only creates the final result, but also shapes you into the person who can hold that result if you want love, but inside are still filled with fear and clinging. The process will take you through situations that cleanse the fear, so you will not ruin the gift when it comes. If you want prosperity, but your consciousness is still tied to lack, the process will lead you through experiences that force you to change belief, so that when wealth arrives, it is not just a moment, but a lasting climate. Many do not understand this, so they call the process trial or suffering. But in truth, it is preparation. It does not oppose you. It shapes you to match the gift you have chosen. I often compare the process to a river. When you release a paper boat, you do not need to know which bends it will pass. You only know for sure it will reach the downstream. But if you run along the bank, constantly lifting it up to check, you destroy the flow. Trusting the process is allowing the boat to complete its journey, even if you cannot see it. In the readings I have seen souls seeking healing. They began with strong faith, but when symptoms did not change, they became anxious and planted doubt. The result was fluctuation. But those who stayed consistent in the feeling of being healed, even while pain remained, eventually saw the pain vanish, not by chance, but because they allowed the process to complete. You must understand that the process is the clearest evidence of the fairness of the law, for it shows no favoritism, grants no privilege. It only demands patience and steadiness. Patience here is not passive waiting, but active living in the state of already having refusing to let temporary circumstances define you, holding firm the essence of the result. When you can do this, you will discover peace, for you are no longer torn between wanting and not wanting, between hope and fear. You enter the state of consistency. Peace itself is the sign that you are trusting. The process, another subtle truth is that the process often chooses the shortest path, but not the one you imagine. You may expect your desire to come from one direction, but the law has countless ways, and when you trust, you do not limit it to one script. I once saw a man desiring new work. He submitted applications with no result and thought the law was not working. But it was those rejections that forced him to change direction. And in that new direction, he found an opportunity far greater. Had he quit, he would never have known. The process was only leading him to another shore. Therefore, trusting the process also means releasing control, accepting that the greater intelligence knows the way. True freedom comes when you no longer ask, when no longer doubt the how. You simply rest in the result and allow each day to pass as a step closer, even without evidence. You begin to see delays as signs of preparation, curves as essential parts of the journey, and then one day evidence appears gently as if it had always been there. You will smile because you understand you were never abandoned. The process faithfully brought you to the right place, right time, right form. Trusting the process is the bravest act because it requires you to set reason aside and walk by soul. But once you do, you will taste the freedom of one no longer bound by time or circumstance. And I affirm that anyone who holds this trust long enough will see the glory of the result, not because they are lucky, but because the law never fails. As I close this journey, what remains in me is not a collection of separate methods, not a list of steps to do or to achieve, but a clear and luminous recognition that all paths lead to union, that I and the Creator have never been apart. In countless readings, I have seen that every soul, when it lays down the shell of fear and doubt, returns to the same point, a point not in the future, not in some distant realm, but right here, in this moment where you recognize that you are, and in this recognition, all questions stop, all cravings quiet, and only full presence remains. I have seen people spend their whole lives searching for signs, searching for evidence, searching for confirmation from the world, but when they stop for a moment of awareness, they suddenly realize that the greatest sign is the breath flowing in them. The greatest evidence is the heartbeat that has never abandoned them, and the strongest confirmation is the sense of invisible support. No reason can explain. I call this moment union, because there is no longer me and others, no longer inside and outside, no longer asking and giving, only one single flow, and you are within it. Union does not need proof. It reveals itself when you cease striving, when you allow yourself to be still, and then you see that you are not a beggar standing outside the door, but part of the house itself. Every practice I've shared, from imagination, from assumption, from emotion, from release, has only been small paths leading you back to that house. And once you have returned, you no longer need to hold tightly to the method. You live naturally in it, just as a seed, once it becomes a tree, does not return to being a seed. Once you touch union, you cannot forget. In union, you no longer see the world as enemy. For every reflection is only a reminder. You no longer blame solitude, for solitude is only the mother's womb cradling you. You no longer doubt the process, for the process is the breath of the universe synchronized with your own. I sit in silence and see clearly that I never had to wait for God to come, for He never left. I never had to call Him back, for I never left Him. It is only the play of memory and forgetting while the true essence remained intact. When you understand this, all anxiety leaves you, not because problems vanish at once, but because you know that even problems are part of the dance of union. They come to open what in you was still unclear, and when you receive them in peace, they dissolve on their own. This is the quiet resonance I want you to keep, that you are not the seeker, you are the place where the search ends. You are not a soul wandering in the dark, you are the lamp, and darkness only makes your light more visible. You are not someone standing outside the gate of heaven. You are the gate itself. And when you wake tomorrow, remember that no more signs are needed, for the sign is already within you. No more promises are needed, for the promise has been fulfilled. No new path is needed, for you are walking in the path that has never been lost. I end here, but in truth there is no end, only a continuous flow, and that flow is called union. In that flow, I and you, I and the universe, I and the Creator are only one